So we are going to be reading the Odyssey, and you do have a big project that you have to do along with the Odyssey just to show that you've been reading and you've been thinking about the reading. So you will be able to find the Odyssey that you have to read in this Google folder, and it's at the top of the modules on the home page. So you will have access to this folder, and when you go, it's separated so that you can like click on the PDF, you can read, you can download it if you don't have internet at home. And it's basically like a poem. And we've got the invocation to the muse here. If you do download this onto your Chromebook, when you open it, you should be able to select things so that you can kind of copy and paste whatever you need to for any assignments that we're going to do later. And so your big project, so you're not going to be reading the entire book. I do used to have students read the entire book, but I'm starting to be a nicer person, I guess. So there are parts where you are reading kind of a summary instead of the entire chapter. And as you can see, it says book here, but each book is really a chapter. And actually doesn't take very long to read. We're going to read a lot of it in class together. It reads like a poem, so it can get pretty quick because this here is really just like 3 sentences. It's hardly even a paragraph. All right, so you'll see that sometimes you'll have summaries like this, which looks kind of intimidating, but as you can see here, it's really kind of like 2.5 of the chapters summarized for you in 2 pages here. So that's a little bit less than what my students used to have to do. So you really should feel relieved about that. So your main project is doing the Odyssey visual notes. What you are going to be doing is you are creating your own visual notes for yourself. Okay, it's going to look a little bit like this, and I'll show you where you can find these examples and stuff like that. This project is worth a major assessment grade. Your end product is 6 pages of blank paper filled with visual notes. Each page should cover about 4 books or chapters of the Odyssey, and there are a total of 24 books, so 24 divided by 4 is 6, so that's why you have 6 pages at the end. Your first set is due November 9th, that is next Friday, I believe, next Thursday or Friday, next Friday. And then your second set is due November 29th, so that's after Thanksgiving break. It is a lot of reading, so it's not as much writing. It does have to do with a lot of thinking. Let me show you the examples first before I show you kind of what you have to do on each page. So when you click on that, it will bring you to these images. Okay, this should look familiar. It is the Trojan War background information that we read together from that PDF document. So basically, visual notes are a combination of pictures and also text. And what it does, it organizes your thoughts. So it's another way of approaching notes in a way that makes you sort of think about what are the important pictures that come to mind as you are reading. This is especially good for literature because there are so many scenes that we can visualize. What are the important symbols that you need to have down? What are the important things you need to think about? And how the human mind works is that our brain doesn't often organize things for us like in Cornell notes where everything is linear or chronological, where it's kind of like in a vertical sort of line. Because when you're looking at your notes, it goes from top to bottom. It's very organized for you. But our brain is actually very malleable to some of the things that we are learning. So when we are making new connections and some of our nerves are connecting, we sometimes make those connections in very spatially pleasing ways instead of a very linear way. And this sort of visual notes really allows us to sort of see our brain and the mess that is inside our brain onto the paper in a way that is allows for that spatial meaning to come about instead of forcing us to go from lines of notes. So as you can see, I started off with kind of like the important stuff, like how there were two books. The first book is the Iliad, which is about Troy and the Trojan War. The second book, which is what we're reading, is about the journey of Odysseus, and it's called the Odyssey. And then from there, I sort of mapped out little scenes from the Trojan War background information that we got. We started with the golden apple, the kidnapping of Helen, the gathering of the Greek soldiers, and then how they convinced Odysseus and Achilles to join, and then the problem with the slave girls that they were kidnapping, and then we have some of Achilles' armor being the source of the conflict between Patroclus, Hector, and then Achilles, and then we've got Odysseus' plan of the Trojan horse, the sacking of Troy, and then how Odysseus has to spend another 10 years at sea, making him be at sea for 20 years. Well, being away from home for 20 years. So what you are doing is for each 4 books, 4 chapters of the Odyssey, you have to draw out major scenes. You do have to be selective because that's 1 page. You kind of have to cover 4 chapters. So you got like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, kind of laid out like that, or however you want to show it in a spatially pleasing way. You're going to do a little bit of coloring. As you can see in my examples here, I didn't color everything, but I colored things that I really want to have stood out for me, especially when I'm digging through these notes for some important stuff like significant plot points, things like that. You want to use arrows and numbers and frames to organize your thoughts. So what I mean by frames are like separation between ideas, and then arrows that kind of show what note you go from this one to this one, and how you want your eyes to follow in your notes. And then you want to also label with text. So it's not just pictures, it is a little bit of text to help me decipher what you are trying to show me. And in fact, some of the more important parts, I really have to use a lot more text than I do with drawing. Because first of all, I don't think it's really important that the priest gets eaten. It's important for me to write down, but not important for me to have it jump out at me from the page with some visualizations. And you might also have to label like major motifs, like how I did here with the abduction of Helen and then the gathering of Greek soldiers. There should not be a lot of blank space on each of your pages. It needs to be neat. It needs to not be crumpled up pieces of paper that you dug up from the bottom of your book bag. And please, please, please don't draw on the back. I do use like Sharpies and stuff, and I do have those supplies for you, and they bleed onto the back, so it's really hard to see on the back of things. So try not to draw on the back. You will be allowed to use your visual notes during quizzes and tests. So it's very important that your visual notes are helpful for you during those quizzes and tests about the Odyssey. And if you put in extra effort, there are extra credit opportunities. You can do more pages, or you can maybe even make sure that your work is very unique. You make very unique artistic choices. You draw in a very distinct way that sets yourself apart from your peers, basically. So it doesn't look like you just copy your visual notes from somebody else. And that you actually did work out thinking about the text on your own. So good luck with that. I do have everything open for you, so you can get started if you would like. We are going to start tomorrow with reading the first part of the Odyssey together with the invocation to the muse. And while we are reading out loud in class, you're going to be allowed to, jot down any notes that you need to space out your visual notes or start drawing for your visual notes, anything like that.